guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
Okay, welcome back everyone. Tonight a little shorter episode. Tyler isn't here, he had to work, and so I'm doing the streaming for tonight. I'm not sure how long we'll be on the air, it depends on my other friend who is on air here with me. Um, we have a focus on the We Are All Assange Twitter storm for tomorrow. You guys are all probably super excited about it. We'll mention some other things too, some recent events, some important things. Yeah, and we'll talk about Assange situation and upcoming protests to defend Assange in December. So thanks for listening, everyone, and please help to share this around. We'll probably still, most of us are probably still shadow banned, and it also has to do with last week's storm. I mean, we've been spamming so much that some lost accounts. I think 3 people lost accounts at least that I know of, and some got full shadow bans again. It's all worth it, of course, but we depend on you guys to share it around. So thanks for listening, everyone. Hey, I don't know, what do you want to start about? Okay.
Well, let's start about the Assange Twitter storm, because that's one of the most important things. So I'll let you kind of go into that while I read off here.
Okay, yeah, you just read whatever you want to mention soon. Yeah, so last Friday we did Assange Twitter storm, hashtag We Are All Assange. And it was pretty successful. We hit trending in France and in Italy. This week we want to go trending global. I'm not sure if Twitter will allow us to do that. I don't think they're too fond of Assange related hashtags, to be honest. What do you want to say?
Oh, no. I have my key as control.
Okay. Yeah, no, so I don't know. I'm not sure if Twitter will be too happy with Assange hashtags. I'm not sure if they will allow us to go global. I don't think so personally, but at least we will go global. We will do whatever is needed to go global, is what I mean. If they will accept it, I don't know. We'll see. But it's very important to do that, and yeah, our plan is actually to do it like every week, right? To just repeat every Friday our tweet storm. And just get as much attention as possible. There is another hashtag, as the Pardon Assange hashtag. Some people want to ask the United States President to pardon Assange. Now, I myself, I'm not from the USA. There are many Assange supporters from all around the world, and so we chose this international hashtag, We Are All Assange, because, yeah, quite. To say it's simple, whatever happens to Assange can happen to all of us after that. I mean, he's an innocent journalist, and they're asking for his extradition to the United States for publishing things they don't like so much. And if they can do that to him and they succeed in that, then we are all at risk. So it depends on that case, and free press journalism is at risk, and that's why we chose We Are All Assange. It is non-partisan. We don't ask any president or whatever person they put in place for help. We're asking attention from the entire world to this case, and that's why we chose this hashtag. And we were successful last week, and we hope we will be more successful this week, and I think so. There's more attention for it. More people are very excited. I saw Anons from Serbia. I saw Anons showing up from the actual Anonops IRC server. I haven't visited that place in years, but they showed up on Twitter and they showed solidarity. Others are joining in, so in that. People are very excited for this, and they show a lot of solidarity with this case. And Christina Assange, who's Assange's mom, was happy with it. She promoted the Twitter storm too. So people think like, yeah, does Assange family agree with this? Yeah, well, she is also promoting it. So we hope to get a lot of attention to it, and we will. We decided it would be best to do it at 8 o'clock evening time, UK time. So for me that's 1 hour later. For the US East Coast is probably 5 hours earlier than, and US West Coast is probably 9 hours earlier, if I'm correct. Yeah, so it is 8 o'clock evening UK time, and that's when we will start. But it's not just going to be like for 10 minutes. I mean, like we're going on for hours, right? And we're going to push 10,000s of tweets. There will be a tweet sheet available, and just if you don't read any other advice we will post anywhere else, make your own tweets. Don't just retweet, because retweets don't help us to grow the Twitter storm. You have to make new separate tweets, because they count the total amount of tweets, and the retweet is just the same tweet, so that doesn't add to the level we need. You can retweet and put a quote above it. And also another advice, don't tweet more than one time every 5 to 10 minutes, right? You don't want to overload the system. You will have it will put you on bans, or have you verify your phone again. It will be super annoying for you. So just do it like once every 5 to 10 minutes, and use the We Are All Assange hashtag. Combine it with other hashtags like Assange or Free Press. If you can't join this week, yeah, Free Assange is a good one.
All those hashtags. Clovers for Assange.
Yeah. If you can't join this week, then join next week. I mean, we'll do this every single week until he's free, of course. And yeah, like in the next week, I think on Thursday it is a Human Rights Day, if I'm correct. We'll probably ask a lot of attention for this case on that day too, using whatever traction that hashtag gets. Yeah, so join us at 8 o'clock tomorrow, UK time, in the evening. That was about it, I think. Okay.
All right. So in other news, what I was just reading is about the U.S. dollar and how it's now reached record lows for evaluation of the dollar. What that means is the purchasing power of the dollar has gone down, meaning products would be more expensive, or starting to get more expensive, I should say. So, you know, as we've talked about in this show multiple times, the dollar seems to be heading towards collapse. And the recent stimulus that they want to pass will only decrease the purchasing power of the dollar.
Yeah, because a stimulus is like a new injection, right? A new financial injection into the market, right?
Right. So they're essentially injecting capital that we don't really have, and printing more money. The whole thing about how the printer press goes burr 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 burr. Well, yeah, that's what's kind of going on right now. And they've been doing it this whole year, printing money because of the whole virus situation and everything. And they've been doing it this whole year. It seems that this latest one is going to be one that could kind of pull the dollar down more in its purchasing power, and from there, it'll just, the inflation rate on gold and other assets will go up because they're commodities. But like purchasing food and stuff like that, it'll go. That will also skyrocket in the prices. So things will go up. Like, say, it'll be like $5 for a loaf of bread, or like $10 for a loaf of bread, or something like that. It's going to be insane. And the thing is, like, this happened before with the whole Great Depression, and people are kind of not realizing where the economy is going. And that's why you see these big major companies and hedge funds all hedging against the decreasing purchasing power of the dollar. Hedge funds, by getting involved in buying gold and buying cryptocurrency, specifically Bitcoin. And Bitcoin this week actually saw a new all-time high. I don't know if you know that or not, but it did. It went up to, it's like 19,880 or something like that.
Yeah. Okay, so to make it simple, like for people listening, like they're injecting money because there isn't enough money flow going on because of the whole lockdown situation and everything. So there isn't enough being spent and everything. And so what they do is they inject new money.
Well, wait. It's not only that, though. It's also that people need help. There's no other solution but to kind of go into a socialist or communist type of state where the government is aiding people, because there's no other solution there when you have citizens that aren't working, can't work because of the virus. Now there's a lot of places that have opened up, but the issue that we have is that because we closed down things, right, these smaller stores and shops of mom and pop shops, they went out of business. They couldn't afford to keep paying the rent that they have to pay the landlords for renting a property, to continue running their business. So they went out of business.
Yeah.
So because of that, there's a lot of people who don't have a employment right now, and because unemployment is so high because of places closed down, like restaurants and stuff like that. They are now kind of not only just stimulating the economy, but also giving out people funds that they say will help them, which is only like $2,000 or something. It's not a lot of money. It's a very little amount of money. But they're giving out like $2,000 or so, and saying, this is for you guys to be able to survive and continue living. It's a joke, but it might help somebody. Some people, I understand that, but it also harms the economy in the longer run, and in the short term, it could cause the purchasing power of the dollar to go way down, And as we're seeing now, and we haven't even had the stimulus yet, as far as I know. I don't think it passed, but now we're seeing that the dollar is going to all-time lows, record lows.
Yeah, and that okay. So, but that's very simple to explain. The government prints new money, injects it into the economy to help the poor or whatever, the people who are in problems. But when you create new money, it's kind of like when you're on the market and there are people, all the people together want 10 apples and you have 11 to offer suddenly, right? You add an 11th apple. You have to go cheaper with the cost of your apple, because otherwise those 11 apples won't be sold. There's only a requirement for 10. So that is kind of like the inflation thing. The money drops in value. You inject money into the system that's being newly printed or newly added to the digital numbers, right, these days. That drops the value. And when people say like, okay, the coffee gets more expensive, the oil gets more expensive. No, they're not getting more expensive. No, your money is dropping in value. That is what's really going on, and nothing is getting more expensive. You're dealing with an inflation that is happening forever. Like for hundreds of years, you already have inflation.
Now, here's the issue with that, though. The issue with that is that currently, the U.S. dollar is the world reserve currency. Okay. So, because the U.S. dollar is the world reserve currency and everything is backed by the dollar, it will affect other countries. It won't just be the U.S., it'll affect other countries as well. And it'll affect other countries' economies. A former Wall Street banker once told me and said that how all the economies are now interlinked, and that one event could cause a collapse of all the markets. And I kind of think, I haven't talked to him and asked, but I kind of think that that's where we're heading in regards to this, because of the the downturn of the dollar that we have seen in the past couple months. The stocks are way, way, way overvalued. Anybody who looks at that can see that. To see the bubble that kind of created in the stock market, I mean, look at those evaluations and look at how most of the stock market is basically just the whole FANG stocks or Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, and Google. That's most of the tech stocks, and the tech stocks are actually driving the S&P 500. Now, I might be getting into too much financial talk for people, but the S&P 500 is just mostly those tech stocks holding up the market, and because of that, it's kind of looks like a bubble. It looks like a major, major bubble, and when that does pop, it's going to take down the rest of the market with it. And it kind of looks like we're getting to a situation where everything's kind of adding up together to form a climax event, which the climax event is going to be an economic collapse, unfortunately.
Of course. Of course, because the entire U.S. system and the West, by the way, is built on the assumption of a forever growth, a continuous growth. The economy has to grow forever, and that is because of the whole inflation system. Like, there is a steady growth of money supply forever, and only when the economy grows can it last. That is what the international investments are based on. If it doesn't grow anymore, then you have a serious problem, and that's why they try to save it with artificial, so-called fake growth. And that also has to do with the new Green New Deal, right? You want to force people to invest in their own system. You want to have the big banks lead the green revolution. So there is new money injected into them to lead a new green economy. And it has to do with making sure there is new money injected into the economy because it needs it. Otherwise it doesn't grow. So, yeah.
Okay, so then let's say the economy collapses, right? how do you bring the markets back up from after a full-fledged economic collapse? The
Well,
answer,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, the answer is you introduce a new asset form of currency. Now, we've already tried gold years ago, backing the dollar with gold, and then they took us off the gold standard. Where we are heading is blatantly obvious. It's going to be a fiat central bank digital currency. And it's going to be each country is going to have their own digital currency. Okay. We are heading to that future now. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but it's inevitable, and we can't do anything to stop it. That is where we are heading.
We'll try. Though.
You could try, but it's already okay. Visa just this week partnered with the Ethereum USDC project, so they're going to be implementing the stablecoin USDC into Visa payment platforms. It's already official.
Yeah, I understand.
Now, the thing is with this is that I don't think that there is going to be one single fiat digital currency. I think it's going to be privatized, and as we've already had multiple stablecoins developed on Ethereum, I think that this will be more decentralized. So there is a positive there that it won't be backed by the government, meaning the government won't have full control over things as they do now with the Federal Reserve and everything. At least for now, from what I see. I don't know exactly what they're going to do. I did mention to a YouTuber friend of mine, and he kind of put out what I said. I had a source, or two sources I should say, who said that basically the U.S. is getting ready for heavy cryptocurrency regulations, and they are going to require that basically wallets and companies have KYC and AML. They already have the AML stuff in place, right? But it's not. They don't have the KYC stuff in place where they have to require them to do KYC for all these wallets, for all the non-exchanges. You know, they have KYC for exchanges, right? But we're talking about the more decentralized exchanges that they'll be going after. So I don't know what they're going to do as far as central bank digital currencies go, but
yeah, they're going to make they're going to replace existing like the existing kind of like the anarchist cryptocurrencies with the big government funded supplied cryptocurrencies. China is doing it, for example. But what people need to realize is that there is a big difference between the real economy and the financial economy, and what the governments are not and the banks are not explaining to people is that there is actually a real economy too, and the real economy is the farmers making food, right? That is a real economy. That food is going to be produced with or without a currency. It's going to be there. People need food to eat, right? So that is one thing. Energy is what people need too. It is a real economy, and then now you see the bankers. They want to get their hands on the energy, like the real economy, using their financial manipulation schemes to get access to the real economy and grab that part of it. But it's a real economy, and it's going to be needed no matter what. You want to have your electricity and your stuff. So those aspects people need to realize. No matter what, if it collapses, you have to actually make sure that the real economy keeps on going, and that's why you should base your society on. I think that's the real economy, and any monetary policy should be based on making the real economy flow as well as it can, and not invest in weird derivative scams on the other side of the world. Yeah, this is, can be that hard.
Yeah.
I mean, that's real, right? I mean, you're going to need food, and the farmer has the food. He can supply it to you. You can buy it directly from him. You can trade it for something else. If you have like a silver coin or something, you give it to this farmer, and you buy whatever food you need, or something else you have as an exchange for food. And you can have that going. Like it is kind of like medieval almost, but it is it can continue, of course. And yeah. Someone in the chat says, yeah, the farmers are being attacked too. Yeah, that is true. Farmers are protesting everywhere now in India, everywhere. They're being hit hard too. The real economy is being targeted by these people at the top. People need to support this real economy. This is the real people fighting for them. They keep the economy going, and that is how it is.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna read off this for just purposes of people to realize it. So basically, as the dollar's declining, the euro, the Australian dollar, and the Canadian dollars, as well as the Korean won, have all touched their highest levels in more than 2 years. While the Swiss franc also is at its strongest since 2015, and the pound hit its highest in roughly a year. So as the dollar is going down, all these other currencies are going up in value.
Yeah, I see. The pound sterling on 124. Yeah.
Right.
Surprised by that. For especially the pound sterling. I mean, yeah. Because the Britain has been obviously has been targeted after the Brexit. There was like a lot of scare campaigning going on, saying that Britain would go bankrupt because it left a political union. Doesn't make sense at all to me, but it's all part of it, right? Politics. But political union has zero to do with your economy. I mean, they can make their own decisions, because I got trade with Netherlands, I trade with Belgium. We have the biggest harbors. Trade with them. Don't need the businesses don't really care about who runs it in that sense. If it's on a European Parliament or it's a British Parliament, they just want to do business, and to transport their products, they need a harbor. They don't need a politician.
So the dollar actually dropped 13% since March. 13% since March. That's a lot in traditional markets.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It would benefit the US if the US would do investments at the same time in resources that are actually growing in value, right? I mean, you pretty much make your national debt go down, because it's paid in dollars, so your national debt goes down. You invest in something that goes up.
Our president is a real estate person who's gone through multiple bankruptcies, and it's ironic that he's going to bankrupt the U.S.
How about a decent financial manager in power? Like, okay, so how can we use a growing inflation? Okay, so we know now that because our money becomes worth less, our actual national debt becomes worth less compared to certain resources. So what we do is we invest in certain resources. and then we actually benefit as an economy. But yeah, I don't know what people run this economy.
What they should do is take advantage of the blockchain being a new technology and open the doors for innovation in blockchain, and you would get billions of dollars, maybe even $1 trillion, flowing in to your economy. Just be pro blockchain. That's it.
Yeah, you want those bitcoins to go up to a few million a piece. But it's essentially going to happen. They're built as...
I'm not saying Bitcoin. I'm saying blockchain technology. although Bitcoin is built on blockchain and its underlying technology, right? Blockchain can be used for so many different things that it's ridiculous. Think of a blockchain as a advanced storage system. Obviously, I think you know what a blockchain is, but for the audience, think of a blockchain as an advanced storage system and a ledger where you can pull information, and you can use smart contracts, build on top of it to do functions. That technology alone could be massively powerful for the supply industry. The supply industry has a massive problem. A lot of people don't know this, but there's a lot of loss in the supply industry because the way that things are working now are not optimal. Basically, a supplier of products has a truck driver, right? Drive to them, pick up the products, and drive it to the store or the purchaser of the products, right? The purchaser of the products is given it's called a bearing. I can't remember the official full term of it, but it's basically a bearing. And essentially what happens is that they take that bearing, right? It's a legal document, okay? It says that I'm going to pay you blah, 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 blah when I receive the product, okay? So then they send a invoice to the supplier of the product, right? And the truck driver doesn't get paid until that person gets their money, and then the supplier pays the truck driver, okay? That's a huge loss for the truck driver and a huge loss for the supplier, and it's a waste of time for the business receiving the products, because they have to send like 3 or 4 different documents, for this whole process. All of that could be automated on the blockchain, right? And then all of a sudden you would have the pay being distributed to the truck driver as he delivers the product, okay? He did his job, he gets paid, the supplier gets paid, and the company pays the supplier instantly, and they don't have to do this whole back and forth messaging thing. So, they're blockchain can revolutionize so many different industries, but the first industry that comes to mind is the whole supply chain industry.
Yeah. Okay, that was a good explanation. Yeah, I only have one problem with blockchain. For the rest, I love it, right? But I have one problem, and that is that it is digital, it is electric, and I'm afraid that if you ever deal with an oppressive government, and I'm not saying the current one isn't, but an openly oppressive government, that dissidents, they can just simply lock them out, or you close down the electricity of people, and you have everything's gone. And the digital. I like coins like Monero, for example, where it is really hard to trace transactions, so they don't know who does what, right? But otherwise, any digital system, there is government forces or whoever, they can watch everything that everyone does, and
for a supply chain, right? That would be a public ledger anyway. I mean, would it really matter, knowing this company paid this company? You could put it on a private ledger. It wouldn't have to be a public ledger. You could put it on a fully private ledger where person A has to have the key for person B, and they both have to have a key to view it, right? You could do that. But is there a real reason to do it? I mean, it's up to the company, but I mean, blockchain, aside from crypto, there's so many use cases for it that it'll revolutionize so many industries that people will regret not investing in blockchain startups. And I'm saying like companies that are using blockchain technology. I'm not saying crypto companies per se, but there's other companies out there that are using blockchain without a cryptocurrency. And these companies that are popping up using blockchain technology, they realize that it's basically an advanced form of a database. It's a much more secure, advanced form of a database. And it allows you to build smart contracts on top of it as well. So you could use whatever blockchain you want to build. There's a lot of corporate blockchains that are now coming out now, too. Because that's the shift. The shift is basically everything's going digital, right? Everything in our world is going digitized. Everything. And where I see what you're saying about how an oppressive government and all of that, right? It's not like you could actually build a blockchain that is powered by the sun. And there is actually a solar startup that's doing that, okay? For energy. So it's not like I don't really fear an oppressive government turning off electricity and blockchain technology not working. You can actually send Bitcoin without being online, too, because there's a satellite in the sky that they launched in 2017 or 18 for being able to send Bitcoin transactions while offline.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's pretty much. I think more people have an issue with that whole digital only thing, but yeah, you have to put in safety measures, I guess. Like, I like an offline economy. Yeah, just not depend on anything like the government or like authorities to do anything. Like you have like on the market, you just pay someone a few bucks and you get your product, right? And government is unaware of what's happening there. It's like really an offline like economy thing, and yeah, I hate to see that disappear entirely. That's what I mean.
Yeah, well, the thing is, like with crypto now, right? We are starting to see oppressive governments come in with their digital currencies, like China. And here's the thing. I agree with you that a fiat digital currency could be dangerous because then all of a sudden, if a government launches a digital currency, right, they will know what you are purchasing, and what you're viewing to purchase, the subscriptions that you have, all of that information, because it would all be on the digital ledger. Now, that would be dangerous. 100% agree with you. Right now, there's a layer between that with the banks, but the NSA has software where they can view banking transactions and stuff like that. That's no secret. Like that's obvious. But yeah, also Gotham by Palantir has that same ability to view transactions and view purchases and all of that.
Yeah, let's talk a bit about Palantir because I saw you mention something about that on Twitter before too. Like, I mean, all the run-ons know about Palantir and the shit they did, HB Gary, and how they planned their attack against us and against WikiLeaks. So maybe it's healthy to talk a bit about that.
Okay, so I found out that Palantir basically had advisors from the government early on during its during the company when it first started. But the people that I found out that were surrounding them was Richard Pearl, okay, number one, and John Poindexter, who were both involved during the Reagan administration. And a source says that Richard Pearl and John Poindexter, along with Vice President then Bush Sr. and was it the CIA director at the time, Bill Casey, were all involved with Iran-Contra. Okay. Also, in addition to that, John Poindexter and Oliver North were involved with Promise Software. And Richard Pearl, who was the DoD secretary at the time during the Reagan administration, was also slightly involved in Promise. I haven't gotten full information on that or any public information that I can divulge on that, but I have had sources kind of say and hint that Pearl was involved with Promise Software and everything that was going on at the time, which makes sense because he was also involved in Iran-Contra with John Poindexter. He knew what was going on with Bush's operations and everything that he was running at the time. Now, William Barr, the current DOJ head, he actually protected the investigations into Promise Software and into Iran-Contra at the time in the 1980s. Okay, so Trump put in basically the cover-up artist, so to speak, right? But it turns out that because Palantir used the advisors from Richard Pearl and from John Poindexter, that the Gotham software is allegedly a fork of Promise, and another fork of Promise software, another precursor to, Promise software was a precursor to Prism software. It's pretty funny because they actually, the name Prism and Promise, it's very close. They just took out.
That's what I wanted to say to you too. I mean, you always talked about Promise, and I was asking, I was wondering, does he mean Prism? I read so much about Prism, right? I know.
Okay, so Prism is basically a more advanced version of Promise software. Now, I don't know if Edward Snowden knows that or not. I tried to, through back channels, I tried to ask Edward Snowden if he knew anything about Promise software, because Promise software is what got a lot of people killed in the 90s, in the 80s and 90s. It got a lot of people killed for mentioning it and looking into it and seeing what they were doing with it. Now, what they actually did with Promise software is the governments, Israel and the U.S., they actually backdoored Promise software and sold it to other governments. So they had access into their systems. So they created multiple versions of Promise software. Promise software is essentially just a advanced form of a database AI, artificial intelligence. So they had artificial intelligence working in the 80s. The artificial intelligence they actually developed under Oliver North was a roundup database for activists and dissidents in case of emergency. It was under Oliver North that they created this database for FEMA Rex 1984, or Rex 84, as most people know it. And this isn't a conspiracy; it's well fucking known. that this is what they did. But the thing is, Promise Software was in the hands of only a select few higher echelons within the military. Okay, now they gave Promise Software a facelift with Palantir and Gotham, and Gotham is essentially Promise on steroids. And it has the ability to do all sorts of different things, looking into people, connecting webs of people. You know, it's more advanced, right? Now, there's still a dissonance database of Promise. It's a forked version of Promise. It's called Main Core. Okay? So they still have the dissonant database active. They misappropriated Promise software, which was originally just prosecuting software used for prosecutors. Okay? All it was a database used for prosecutors. Then they took that and forked it and kept on forking it and kept on forking it into different applications and creating different use cases for the software. And the founder of the software never got paid by the government. So he's been trying to sue the government for like the past decade, you know? Hasn't gotten anywhere with that. But basically, essentially, Promise was forked into various applications, including missile defense systems and submarine applications and banking software, which is what the CIA did along with the NSA. I believe they sold the forked versions of that banking software to governments around the world. They installed the software, and then they had a backdoor into their systems.
Let me cut you off real quickly. That is okay. So you're talking about Palantir and their Promise system and being involved in weapon systems, right? And now we know that this founder Alex Karp, he's the current CEO of Palantir. They received their first funding from the CIA arm In-Q-Tel, right? And In-Q-Tel is being ran by Norman Augustine, and Norman Augustine comes from Lockheed Martin.
Yep.
And Lockheed Martin, then obviously, okay, so this is In-Q-Tel exists since like the 90s, and it invests in this project. It is like funded by the CIA, and he comes from Lockheed Martin, so obviously they fund into this system, and they get that out of it. That's how I see it, right?
Well, yeah, because they're not going to. In-Q-Tel's not going to fund a project and not get anything for it.
No.
They're a data firm.
Yeah.
They want data. That's what they want. It's literally in their fucking name.
I'll throw up another link. Because one of the other investors is Peter Thiel. Now, Peter Thiel is famous in Silicon Valley, right? He's a so-called angel investor. But Peter Thiel also invested in the early days in Elon Musk. Elon Musk, he was one of Peter Thiel was one of the co-founders of co-owners of PayPal, and he was part of the so-called PayPal mafia. And when they sold it, made a lot of money.
I'm pretty sure Musk was involved with PayPal too.
Yeah, Musk was one of the founders of PayPal. That's how he got rich. Yeah. So, but now this is the interesting part. This Norman Augustine was also the chairman of the United States Human Spaceflight Committee. And now we see that suddenly we see Elon Musk moving into spaceflight, right? And then we're talking about like In-Q-Tel funding these people, and then much later getting something out of it. So that is just a real quick link I wanted to make, because now suddenly you see these people. Okay, so a long time ago, they were helped by these investors. 20 years later, they give something back.
Essentially, yeah. I don't know if that's the deal or what it is. I have no idea what their deal was with them. But anybody who anybody who allows In-Q-Tel to invest in their company is giving them data. Like, they're not going to just do it because of, oh, we love your company. No, it's the fucking intelligence agency's fucking investment arm. They're doing that for a reason.
Like literally, they're like in Arlington, Virginia. It's like the heart of the CIA. yeah.
But the thing is, like I said, Palantir had 2 people of the Reagan administration who were both slightly involved, well, except for John Poindexter, slightly involved with the whole Promise affair that was going on at the time. So, as they know, with John Poindexter, it was who was it? It was during Congress. It was Senator Daniel Inouye. He went on Congress and he said how John Poindexter and Bill Casey and all of these people ran essentially a shadow government at the time. They were running a shadow organization. It was essentially a private intelligence agency. That was him warning in the 90s or late 80s, basically that they set up a private intelligence agency that had its own funding, and it was completely outside of the law. They did that on purpose, by the way, because Bill Casey worked along with a banker in Pakistan. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he worked with a banker in Pakistan to set up the BCCI bank. Okay? Iran-Contra connects to the BCCI bank. Promise connects to the BCCI bank. All of these so-called conspiracies, but they're actually not conspiracies unless you're using the term to say essentially they committed a crime or a conspiracy, right? They're all connected to the BCCI bank. The Franklin cover-up during the 80s was connected to the BCCI bank. They had funds that were coming from Franklin Credit Union and transferred to BCCI. Okay? Anything that was going to BCCI was a dirty fund. Essentially what they were doing was they were using any form of sale, so human trafficking, guns sales, drug sales, whatever, to launder money to run their shadow agency. That's what they were doing. And it's well fucking known. It's historical context. And a lot of people seem to just shrug it off and say, oh, that didn't happen. Oh, it did. Go fucking Google it. Go look up Iran-Contra and everything that came out during that time period with Congress and how people were reprimanded for that. Because there was no reprimanding done to anybody involved in that. They just basically got a slap on the wrist. That was it. Just a slap on the wrist.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think Palantir got off the hook pretty easy too. I mean, remember
Palantir was around back then. Palantir was around in the 90s.
Yeah, I know, but in 2011 they got off the hook pretty easy too. They didn't have to do much. You just have to apologize to Alex Karp. I mean, like when Anonymous hacked into HB Gary, I mean, we found and these files were found where they were planning to attack WikiLeaks by injecting fake files into the system, right? He only had to publicly say he distanced from HB Gary after that, even though Palantir was involved in those emails directly with the planning.
Well, yeah, that wasn't the only thing that they were planning. They were planning literally to go after activists. And they were planning to essentially decredit people, activists online that were close around WikiLeaks circle. That was literally what it said. Okay, that was their plan. That's why you kind of see some of these shady characters. In my opinion, at least, some of these shady characters pushing disinformation in regards to Assange. It's probably because they're working with this whole discredit WikiLeaks agenda. Um, some of them might just be coincidences, but I don't know, man. Like,
Yeah, but that's a good point that you mentioned that, because people have to realize, okay, so do we call them fads? Can we call them fads? Because actually they're working for commercial companies or semi-commercial companies, and it's kind of like the digital Blackwater. There are commercial companies
right.
with offshore headquarters. You talked about that BCCI bank. I think it was founded by a guy from Pakistan. But
Yes,
yeah,
I can't remember his name. Adnan. No, that's not it. That was the Iran Contra. Adnan Khashoggi was the Iran Contra weapons smuggler, one of them. Um, I can't remember his name off the top of my head for the life of me, but he helped set up the BCCI bank directly with Bill Casey. And Ted told me that another thing that's really important there is essentially Bill Casey had Ted Gunderson and I think it was Michael Reconasuto running drug operations at one point in time. Out of, I think it was Vietnam. So Bill Casey was just a crooked guy. That's all I got to say. That wasn't when he was in the CIA either. It was when he was involved with something else. I don't remember 100%, but
yeah, I wanted to mention PCCI and Pakistan directly, because Pakistan on the surface is a so-called enemy of the USA, in the sense that they say they don't allow U.S. Military bases, for example, to attack other countries in the region. But behind the scenes, such projects like BCCI Bank are ran from Pakistan, involved with U.S. intelligence, and running these schemes.
well, that was also Pakistani intelligence too, because you
Yeah,
you got to realize who ran the BCCI bank. It was a leader of Pakistan. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but the leader of Pakistan. That was at the time. So like they knew what they were doing with this. They knew that they had set up a organization to be able to um, smuggle in funds, and I think that was also around the time of the Mujahideen. I think.
Yeah, I just looked into the name real quick now because you couldn't remember. It's Aga Hassan Abadi. BCCI Bank, you can search for it. It was started in London, actually. It is a Pakistani financer. They had offices in Luxembourg too, and in Karachi, and in London. They pretty much ran, the financial part of these intelligence operations. And of course, it gets crashed when the job is done. They destroy it. So.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. They had William Barr protect the investigation into BCCI and BNL. So that's a known fact. It's like people need to realize. I know my shit when it comes to this. I've talked to so many different sources. I know a lot of information. Some things I'm holding back on, like saying. But I know a lot of information when it comes to this. But yeah, Palantir is connected to Promise Software. Now, I was kind of hinted at that, but I didn't have any direct evidence that somebody gave me. I don't know if they didn't want me to know this or what, or they didn't know it. I think they knew it and they didn't tell me. But essentially, you have Richard Pearl, okay, who's the DOD secretary during Reagan, right? This is the same Richard Pearl who wrote who co-wrote the new Pearl Harbor document, the whole 9/11 thing. That Richard Pearl, the Project for a New American Century, same guy.
Yeah.
What a coincidence! That's all I got to say.
Yeah. Intelligence operations. They work like on one side they work against a certain country, and on the other side they work together with certain operations. It is like this network is so it's so hard to get like a clear view of it, that almost none of the information we have now will be reliable a year from now.
All right. Well, so in the late 1980s, there was a meeting that took place with Ted Gunderson, Michael Riconoscuto, and a few different businessmen, with then CIA asset Tim Osman, who is now known as, Osama bin Laden, right? Or was known as Osama bin Laden. Like, they had a meeting with him in the late 1980s, and they discussed giving the Mujahideen man pads. I have no idea if this took place or not, and if they were delivered or not. I believe they were delivered, but I don't 100% know. The main point is that they had this meeting in a hotel, and they're talking to Tim Osman. At the time, he was a CIA asset and tactician. They were using him in the proxy war, essentially, against the Russians with the Mujahideen. It was Operation Cyclone. So, like how I always talk about how Michael Riconoscuto predicted the attacks of 9/11 7 months before or 9 months before, I forget what it is off the top of my head. He sent a letter to Colin Powell and said basically that there was a terror faction in the U.S. in New Jersey, and they were planning an attack on New York, and they were planning to hijack planes and fly them into the building, and they were planning to bomb buildings, and he went and basically said everything, right? Now, he predicted the exact location where the terrorists were in New Jersey, and he said that essentially that a offshoot of the CIA, known as the Base, was planning this, right? Like, this is public information from a guy who was sitting in prison. He was falsely imprisoned, okay? He was both a whistleblower in Promise, and he was also involved with Iran-Contra and the October Surprise, and he warned about all of that. And, he also just happens to warn Colin Powell through Ted Gunderson, saying that, 9/11's about to happen, and then it happens. Now, what people don't know is there was a famous researcher, I can't remember his name, Bill Cooper.
Yeah, I wanted to mention that, but I was just waiting for you.
I couldn't remember his name. Bill Cooper went on and said that there was going to be an attack on the U.S. from Osama bin Laden, right? Okay?
And he mentioned Osama bin Laden on the air. Like, the episode still exists. You can listen to the broadcast from Bill Cooper.
Yeah, okay, so how did Bill Cooper know that, right? The answer will surprise you. Or it shouldn't, actually, but it will surprise you.
We'll surprise the listener.
Bill Cooper was friends with Ted Gunderson. Ted Gunderson warned Bill Cooper, okay? Michael Riconoscuto warned Ted Gunderson. Michael Riconoscuto, the reason why he knew it was about to happen is because he worked on Promise Software, okay? Promise Software was stolen, okay? And it was sold to the Russians, who then sold it to Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden in revenge for the U.S. for the whole Operation Cyclone thing in the 80s. That's what seriously happened on 9/11. Is that the Russians, you want the real Russiagate? That's the real Russiagate. There was an FBI official who stole Promise Software and sold it to the Russians. Okay? Because Michael Reconasuto was both involved in Promise, and he was both involved in that whole the base situation where he had sources in the Mujahideen because he was working with the Mujahideen to sell them man pads in the 80s, right? He was able to know what was being planned. And that's how he warned Colin Powell. And the Bush administration did nothing because they wanted it to happen. There's people within the government who aided that whole entire thing when there was FBI agents that were going off and saying essentially that we want to investigate Osama bin Laden. They were shut down. Why were they shut down? They were shut down because Osama bin Laden was a CIA asset in the 80s.
Yeah, Tim Osmond was his name. Tim Osmond. And it was against the Russians back then, because the Russians were back then invading Afghanistan.
Right. So they funded a proxy war, okay? And Michael Reconasuto, the guy who just happens to be he's known as the dot connector online. Literally, that's his name. Because all of a sudden you look at this guy and he's connected to so many so-called conspiracies. Okay? And the thing is, what people need to realize is that there's been people within the government who allow or sometimes aid some of these terrorist attacks. I'm not saying every single one, obviously, but 9/11 was 100% aided. Michael Shipman, who's another whistleblower, right? He was working in the Saudi consulate in Saudi Arabia, okay? The biggest secret here about 9/11 is that the Saudis helped along the attack. They actually funded the dry runs of the attack. It's a well-known thing now. It's been said for years that the Saudis funded the attack, and I know everybody's going to say, "Oh, you're a shill for saying that," but it's not. That's not how this works. I have no idea about the whole Israeli involvement with the art students and all of that jazz, and how they predicted the towers collapsing and the Israeli vans from urban moving systems. I don't know that part. I do know this part, and the part is that the Saudis helped along the attack, and the hijackers were allowed, according to Michael Shipman, he was ordered to give them visas and let them go to the U.S., despite the fact that he said that they had no real reason to go. He was ordered, and he worked at the CIA consulate in Saudi Arabia.
You have to give a little disclaimer by that. It is not the entire intelligence agency, right? These are rogue elements, or maybe even the controlling elements, but they're not the entire agency. The normal people don't know about this. It works in compartments, cell-based structures, and that is, they do this out of security reasons. They use cells for different operations, and these operations, they don't communicate to the outside usually. This is how these intelligence people work. They get specific jobs. People are not made aware of their job outside of it. So that causes these things to happen. Especially the CIA, by the way. They're involved in drug operations.
Or they because of the way the compartmentalization is structured, right? And the fact that these compartments operate essentially outside of the law with their own funding. Okay, you have things like this take place where essentially that people within the government are able to set up privatized intelligence agencies and do as they did in the Iran-Contra era, right? And fund things like this. Now, I don't know fully any of the funding mechanisms of this. I just know the connections in regards to Promise Software involved in 9/11, and that essentially the hijackings were allowed to take place. And any investigations by FBI agents into Osama bin Laden were shut down. I have all that evidence. I have all that cited. I can cite that for anybody who wants to challenge me on this narrative. I could cite every single thing on it. I have nothing. I have no knowledge in regards to Israel, besides the fact that a few years ago, the Saudi king accused Israel of doing 9/11 when it started coming out that Saudi Arabia was involved. And I think, personally, I think it was a joint run operation involving parts within Israel, parts within Saudi Arabia, and parts within the U.S. That's what I think. But I don't have full proof to prove that, okay? But I do have evidence in regards to factual information that says Promise software was stolen by this FBI agent. He sold it to the Russians. The Russians sold it to Al Qaeda. And then, Al Qaeda used Promise software, which is basically as a backdoor. They had a backdoor into the U.S. systems. So how did they avoid scrutiny or being caught? Is essentially because they were inside the U.S. system, the U.S. intelligence systems. They were able to view everything. That's what I know in regards to 9/11. I have no idea of Israel's involvement. I don't doubt that Israel was involved because they have that whole urban moving systems thing that's just so bizarre, where they painted a fucking picture of a tower falling. It's just shit like that.
Yeah, but
So,
look into
I
it.
don't doubt.
Okay, but look at it like not the entire intelligence agency, of course. Like this is compartmentalized. And then we go use the Epstein example. Epstein had connections with someone working at the Mossad. Yeah, right? There are contacts there. Epstein also was high up in politics with all high up level politicians involved. So
Epstein
if you go,
and the Victoria's Secret founder, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, because I have so much going on right now up in my head. The Victoria's Secret founder, it's not Jean Luc Brunel, it's fuck's his name? Wait, what's his name, Mark? I know you know it. Come on.
the founder of Victoria's, I don't know, Roy Raymond.
No.
That's the founder, it says. Oh, it's in California.
What the fuck?
Oh, yeah, no, it does give that thing he's the one who threw himself off the bridge, right? He committed suicide, Roy Raymond. Leslie Wexner.
Les Wexner is who
That's
I
not the
was
founder. That's the Raymond sold the company to Leslie.
Well, he was the owner. He was the owner for 50 years.
Yeah, he bought it in 1982 from Raymond.
I didn't know this. Okay, well, I just found this out. Apparently, Les Wexner stepped down from Victoria's Secret earlier this year. After all the stuff started coming out about him connected to Epstein. Now, Les Wexner and Epstein jointly funded the American Air aviation company that was involved in the CIA's operations. I think that was... let me look that up real quick just so I can just 100% say it.
Yeah. Okay. But so what? Why I was saying this is okay when you talk about like Israeli intelligence doing being involved with 9/11. I'm saying like okay, so people like Epstein also had connections to certain people inside intelligence. Now you talk about criminal organizations and what with Epstein connections to high-level politicians. These criminal organizations do exist, and when they want to carry out such a thing, they have contacts with different politicians in different countries, and they're a part of this network. And it's hard to like mention a specific country as being behind it, but you can say like, yeah, you can say like Kibono, like who benefits at the end. That's what you can look at, and yeah. Then you look at who invested in these properties, who invested in the
Right.
military shortly before it, who invests in real estate in these areas, and you can find a whole lot of shit on these people, honestly. And it's all public if you just look good enough. I mean, you can look at the
Right.
investments these companies do. You just have to spend time. And I'm always wondering like, why didn't it really happen in that way? They could have spent some time on it if they were actually independent journalists, right? But, yeah.
Well, Whitney Webb did. She dug into um, Air America and Epstein and Leslie Wexner, and she noticed that essentially Wexner and Epstein helped fund the redistribution of Air America. That's not the word I want. Redistribution. It's renewal. It's not it either. I have a lot going on top of my head to be able to discuss this. Essentially, the attribution of the company rebranding. Essentially, the rebranding of Air America into whatever it was rebranded into. That's what Wexner and Epstein helped the CIA do. And then Wexner used the company for his clothing for Victoria's Secret, for L Brands. So, you can put two and two together. If it was used for the CIA for drug smuggling, what were they doing under Wexner and Epstein? Yeah, it was obvious.
In regards to Epstein, someone in the chat, Major Tom, thanks for that, says Epstein, Manafort, Roger Stone, and Trump were all apprentices of Roy Cohn, the original blackmailer. They earned their trade well. Laundering and dirt is their trade, is what he says. Do you know anything
Roy
about
Cohn
that?
with Lewis. Yeah, Roy Cohn with Lewis. Fuck, I can't remember his last name. Let me look it up. Lewis. Rosensteel. I couldn't remember it, and then it just popped in my head. So Roy Cohn with Lewis Rosensteel. Both of those two men were known essentially as blackmailers, and they would go as far as use little boys to blackmail people. And Lewis Rosensteel, along with Roy Cohn, actually hosted these blackmail parties with little boys. And what they would do is they would drug the guest. They were the ones who first started this. And then it shifted over to Craig Spence and the other people who were involved in those operations. And then Epstein. So they would drug people. Okay. It would get them into a compromising situation with a little boy. They used to use little boys because back then it was seen as obscene to not only be gay, but also you would be a pedophile, right? So it was like completely destroying your reputation. So they would use that to blackmail people. And yes, Trump and Epstein were all under Roy Cohn. They knew Roy Cohn and were essentially mentors of Roy Cohn.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know anything about that, so I just said in the chat, let me ask AK.
Yeah.
I know about European networks, and it's disgusting here too, and it is not so different at all. But you know that already too. I mean, it's just like pretty much the same story, like with these blackmailers, and we have the famous the True Case and the Michel Nihul and the cocaine mafia. But we also have in Italy we have Berlusconi and so-called Banga Banga parties, and yeah. Politicians get invited, and underage girls get invited to the same parties, and there is a lot of videos are made and pictures, and later on these politicians are being blackmailed by serious mafia figures.
Right, mafia, yeah. And they do this through the easiest fucking possible way. Double-sided mirrors and cameras, that's it. Like,
Yeah, but you have to understand, these are serious killers, they're serious mafia, and I mean, these politicians are obviously scared too for the alternative. I mean, you can either get, okay, so they use blackmail against you, but they can also kill you. I mean, yeah. I mean, like a serious mafia hit. I mean, the president isn't safe against a serious mafia hit. I'm going to refer back to the JFK situation, but it's always been said that there's mafia involved.
right, that's true. That's true. In regards to these mafia folks, there's a recent case that's popping up in the media. Well, it's not a recent case, but I mean it's a now partially solved case of the missing girl in Portugal. What was her name? Maddie McCann.
Oh yeah.
And the guy who's involved with it is a guy from Germany. And he said to his girlfriend the night before Madeline McCann went missing that he had a job to do and that she wouldn't like him anymore afterward, but it paid a lot of money. So he's from Germany. He has a job to do. And this little girl goes missing.
Yeah, Madeline McCann, that's one of the most disgusting cases I've seen. It's
Right.
really bad.
Well, did you look into this serial abuser, pedophile, killer guy? Because he's one sick puppy.
Oh yeah. Maybe send me
He's-
some stuff.
He had investigators had found that he had buried a bunch of tapes. They haven't said what's on the tapes yet, but I can only imagine what they found on those tapes. Because he was talking about torturing he was talking about torturing little kids for fun, all this other shit, and capturing something and killing it. I'm sorry, he said capturing something small and killing it. So pretty sure that what he meant by I have a job to do was I'm going to kidnap this little girl, make a snuff film, film it, and sell it on the darknet. Because, or not only just the darknet, but also through networks in Germany. Because I'm pretty sure that this guy's, I have a gut feeling, right, that this guy is somehow connected to the whole Dutroux thing.
Yeah. Yeah, so the Dutroux situation is a very scary one too. I mean, yeah, he was caught and he had like girls in his cellar, but yeah, everyone was kind of convinced that he was like the low-level pimp and he was getting them for these elites. Now, when that huge lawsuit started, that huge court case, over 30 witnesses were killed or died in mysterious circumstances. If you wanna.
Right, just the same as people started dropping dead around Epstein.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. And yeah, you're dealing with serious, but to see 30 different people from all over the region, right, disappear, die in mysterious ways, that is a shocking story, and it should have been given far more attention, to be honest. It received some attention. I mean, media
It was
was
likely somehow connected into intelligence. I'm pretty sure, actually. I'm pretty sure there was a link to intelligence with Dutroux somewhere. I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong, but all these like human trafficking things, they always have some type of link into intelligence. With like the Finders, with the CIA over here, they had a cult they ran. It was called the Finders. I can actually tell you that the Finders was connected to Franklin. Michael Aquino was involved with that, and he was also involved with Franklin, the whole Franklin thing, according to Paul Benassi. Now, according to somebody else, he was involved with the Finders. I won't say any names or anything about that. So essentially, Aquino, he was known as the Colonel. Okay, this is where things take a toll and a link back to Rosensteel. Rosensteel was also, they threw around names for each other. It was Rosensteel was like captain or something like that. Aquino was called the Colonel. And there's somebody else who was involved. I can't remember. Roy Cohn, his nickname. I can't remember what he was called. But essentially, if you look into it, there's a connection between Aquino and Roy Cohn. And it's really fucking hard to find. But there is a connection there. And essentially, they ran these child trafficking rings from generation to generation. The thing that's very interesting is that after the whole Franklin cover-up thing happened, there was never any prosecution. The only people who got in trouble were the victims who came forward, right? All of a sudden, there was deaths just like anything else. Just like the Dutroux affair, there was deaths within the Franklin cover-up. And there was a death of the lead investigator, Gary Caradori. There's death of witnesses. There was deaths of secretaries of people who may have saw something, and you saw too much, you're dead. You might squeal. Can't take that chance. But they then aired a film. It was called The Conspiracy of Silence. Only aired one time, and then all the copies were mysteriously bought up. Some big rich people pooled money and bought these the copies of Conspiracy of Silence and basically made the film illegal. So they aired this film one time. You can look it up. It's called Conspiracy of Silence. It talks about everything that went on during the Franklin cover-up. Now, what I found so interesting about all of this is that Ted Gunderson was also involved in the investigation of the Franklin cover-up. And he worked with Gary Caradori and John DeCamp, who was then a senator. And, they all believed that this was going on. They all fought back. And William Colby, who was a CIA director who was found drowned, okay, he offered to help go after the people within government that were involved in this, okay? and he warned John DeCamp and said that if you continue, they're going to get you and they're going to kill you. John DeCamp said, "I'm not giving up." And Ted had the same kind of mentality, and so then William Colby, he actually started helping from the inside. So he started helping John DeCamp and helping Ted Gunderson from the inside, and he was tipping them on essentially the higher up pedophiles, and he gave a dozer to somebody who gave it to Gary Caradori, and Gary Caradori was on a plane, and he crashed, and the dozer was basically taken from the scene. It wasn't found, and it was recovered. Essentially, that's what happened. Now, I have no idea who's on that dozer or anything. Like, I have none of that information, but must have been some pretty high-ranking people at the time to kill somebody in a plane over that. And the thing is, to kill somebody over a plane in that time period, right? All it would require is just a wrench, just untighten a bolt here, untighten a bolt there. Your plane will crash. I have no idea how the plane was sabotaged or anything like that. I just know that the information that I have. Now, this is publicly known, but the same dozer that was given to Gary Caradori was also given to John DeCamp. John DeCamp took it and he buried it into a mountain where basically the mountain has vegetation, and you can only visit it during once a time a year. And I think it's during the spring or summer. I don't know 100% about that. But everybody knows essentially where it's at, just not where it is. Like they know the approximate place of where it is. It's in the Arizona, but we don't know where it is essentially. But he took a whole bunch of the dozer included pictures of politicians in compromising ways, and this was given again to Gary Caradori, an investigator. Gary Caradori was getting ready to go public with it, and then he was killed in a plane crash along with his son and the pilot, I believe.
Okay, there's a lot of people in the chat. Yeah, okay, one person says if they figure out they are being hunted, they immediately dispose of all evidence, that's children and people included. Makes sense, right?
Well, okay, so if somebody is involved in child prostitution or child trafficking, be it if they're a customer or are directly doing the trafficking. A lot of the times, as Mark pointed out, there's mafia type people that are involved surrounding them. A lot of it is especially Russian mafia. I don't know why. I don't know if that's because of some of the a lot of the girls come from Chechnya. But
there's big mafia in St. Petersburg area specialized in that kind of thing, right?
I don't know yet. I don't know if it's St. Petersburg or where it is. I just know a lot of the mafia in Russia is involved in child trafficking, and I don't know why. I haven't been able to figure out why, or if that's just how things are. But a lot of the mafia in Russia is involved in child trafficking, and I'm not saying only Russia, but a lot of the times these mafia groups are involved in child trafficking, and it doesn't have to be like a child. It can just be a 16-year-old girl, or a 15-year-old girl. Um, some of these mafia organizations do have standards. They're not going to traffic like a 9-year-old, but they will traffic like a 16-year-old. So, I mean, and it's not all of them, but some of them do actually have standards like that. Now, with Epstein, there's a very curious quote from his former bodyguard, who was also an MMA fighter, where he talks about how, to a reporter saying, you don't know what you're getting yourself into, all this, saying I can't speak on certain things. It's a much bigger organization than you realize, and I think Epstein had some type of mafia people behind him, and I personally believe Epstein was not the top of the pyramid for that. He was a middleman, and there's probably many more middlemen besides Epstein. I don't think he was the top. And I think he was working for somebody.
Yeah, he died. I mean, he died under mysterious circumstances. That's pretty much really a big red flag there. I mean, people who want to take that whole organization down, they would do everything they can to protect him, right? And some shady stuff did happen on there. Like cameras not working at certain times, and he was under suicide watch and stuff, and still died supposedly because of suicide. Like, yeah, that's where it starts.
Well, so he was taken off suicide watch after it was revealed that he didn't try to commit suicide, that his then roommate, who was a mafia guy, just saying, I think it's Tarantino.
Yeah, that's that guy from New York, right? He was involved with New York.
He was a former New York cop, and he was a mafia guy.
Yeah.
And the lawyer for Epstein came out and said to, I think it was Washington Post or something. I don't know. I have all this cited. I cited it as it was fucking happening. I make sure that I cite all that shit. But basically, essentially, he warned and said that essentially the mafia guy he was in jail with had tried to choke him. And then, it comes out that Epstein's dead. You put two and two together, it's like, okay, well, his I think it was trachea. What was that? What's that bone in your neck? I can't remember what it is now. I thought it was trachea, but that's not. I think that's your windpipe, right? Trachea is your windpipe.
Yeah, I think you want the difficult Latin name. I don't know it, but the bones in his neck were broken, and they don't usually break easy, right?
Yeah, there's 3 bones in your neck that don't normally break easily, and they're more connected to when somebody strangulation or somebody who strangles you. And the fact is...
Clavicle bone, someone says.
What is it?
Clavicle bone, someone says in the chat. I'm not sure what that is.
No, that's not it either. I want... Yeah, it's not the bone that I want. I want... It starts with a T. I just don't remember what the fuck it is. But anyway, essentially, he warned prior, saying that he was being choked by his inmate, and coincidentally enough, they transferred his inmate out the day before that he died, supposedly, right? So I think that's another clue, essentially saying that he was killed by this mafia guy in prison. Now, I don't know, because guess what? Child molesters, they get killed in jail all the fucking time, They're like scum of the earth. Even prisoners believe they're the scum of the earth It's like, you don't hurt a fucking child, okay? So, like, even prisoners that have been in there for murder or whatever, they'll kill child molesters.
Yeah.
So whether or not Epstein was killed because of the fact is that he's a child molester, or the fact that they wanted to cover up the organization, is unknown, but it's obvious that he was killed.
Yeah. So I'm just reading the chat in the meantime. Yeah, I know. Okay, so it was a hit by other mafia guys who hate child molesters. It could be. Would they not wait until he is actually declared guilty?
But here's the thing. I mean, I don't know. I'm not inside their head. But here's the thing. Epstein's bodyguard. Let me try to look up his name so I can actually tell this a little bit better. Epstein's bodyguard essentially said that he doesn't believe that Epstein killed himself and that he had help to kill himself. That was a quote that he actually said, paraphrasing it, but essentially he believes that that Epstein did not kill himself and that he was kind of helped along.
Yeah, okay, so that's a third theory, right? Either like, okay, so he suicided, or he was killed to guard other higher ups or other figures in the organization, or three, he wanted to kill himself, but he thought he couldn't do it because he's under watch and everything, so there was someone hired to do it. It's like a third theory. The weird thing is he did sign.
Third theory, if you think about it, I mean, it's like if you're trying to cover up the organization, it would go with the hire somebody to kill me, but I don't think that's. I personally don't think that's what would happen. I think it's more so, either that the former mafia guy killed him because he's a pedophile, or the fact is that he was helped along to kill himself because he had so much information. It was too much.
Oh yeah, Christine Nunez says something. I actually wanted to mention that too. That he signed his testament or his will like 2 days before. I'm not sure if this is the same thing, but she says he moved all his money 2 days before suicide. I wanted to refer to that he signed his will or his testament a few days before he died, right? And there were two lawyers involved with that, and one of the lawyers, he is also the lawyer for a huge Mexican mafia guy. I forgot his name, right? But you knew about it. I said it to you before. That's that big mafia guy in Mexico, in the drugs mafia.
Yeah, I think it was a woman. I think.
Yeah, I forgot for now. But it was a lawyer who was involved with a big Mexican mafia who was also mentioned. It was also said that person was also that mafia organization was also involved with underage children, with children used for like sex toys and stuff. So yeah, there was a shady thing too about that.
I thought that wasn't El Chapo's lawyer.
Yeah, El Chapo's lawyer. That guy, El Chapo. But El Chapo, if you search about him, there are also stories about El Chapo using underage girls and stuff as sex slaves.
Oh, I didn't know that. Interesting.
Yeah, that's the connection there, right? I mean, if you're talking about the child trafficking. I mean, would be like would Epstein be like a buyer or something, or a supplier of such organizations, something like that?
Well, okay, so there's something that hasn't been mentioned about Epstein that's very obvious that a lot of people have noticed, and that's that if you look at the flight ledgers, you'll notice there's a discrepancy in the number of girls who get on the plane, right? Going from the airport to the island to the ones coming back. Now, there's information that's public that says that Epstein was buying girls from... there was a family in Czechoslovakia, I think he was, where he bought a girl from a family in Czechoslovakia, and there was also allegations that he rented out, or he was gifted. I'm sorry, he was gifted 3 12-year-old girls for his birthday by Jean-Luc Brunel. So what's missing here is, like you said, the whole element of, was he not only prostituting them, but also selling them as in full-on human trafficking?
I assume so. I assume they do both.
I assume he didn't do it with every single girl. I assume that he did it with the ones where he could get away with it in foreign countries where there's not a lot of information to track back, like missing birth certificates. There's no birth certificates in certain countries where you'd be able to get away with doing something like that. And that's why, actually, that's why they use some of these countries, like Czechoslovakia, I believe. I don't think Czechoslovakia has a birth certificate. I can Google that and look it up, but a lot of the countries, foreign countries, like third world countries, don't. And that would be more like African countries and stuff like that. But I'm pretty sure Czechoslovakia also doesn't have a birth certificate.
Yeah, and there's a second thing to it. This is kind of like geopolitical. So the Soviet nation, like the Soviet, during when it collapsed, it was the early 90s. Before that, they didn't have like this age restriction thing, right? They had like a lot of child porn was made there because there wasn't like over 16 or over 18 thing like in the West.
In where? Slovakia?
No, in like in Maine, Russia. So, and when the Soviet Empire fell, one of the first acts they did was actually heighten this age to like 18, right? So they stopped the whole thing, and it was because they wanted to be more West, so they adapted their laws to that. And that was actually the point, that much of this illegal porn, child porn stuff, that moved to the countries bordering Russia. So not Russia itself, where then suddenly the law is 18 or you get like really punished really hard, right? But it moved to the countries surrounding Russia, and that includes Czechoslovakia, but also Lithuania. And Lithuania is also a hub for that kind of stuff these days.
Yeah, Lithuania is really bad as well. So I just looked it up. Czechoslovakia does actually have birth records. I don't know when they started that, but a lot of the what's the word I'm looking for? A lot of the like South American countries, they don't have birth records. So that's where a lot of child trafficking goes on. Where they can't track it, essentially. So if somebody disappears, it's only reported if somebody reports it. It's not like they can like look and say this person's missing. Like they can in the U.S. They can do that in the U.S.
In the US, you're dealing with problems around that with like Native American girls. They disappear also in massive numbers. We had this on a show, 2 Native American speakers about this, and they said like a lot of Native American girls are disappearing, and it's not really being mentioned in the media at all. There seems to be some things surrounding that too.
Right. That's because so there's cults that view brown people as essentially like disposable, and they use brown people in ritualistic ways. As crazy as that sounds, there's a lot of evidence to it if you start looking into cults and everything. Years ago, I don't think it's as widespread now, but I have heard a lot of different stories in regards to cultish activity where they will rape and then kill a brown person. And a lot of the, like I said, like a lot of the South American countries that they do trafficking in, they use these hubs for snuff films and to dispose the brown children because they see them as undesirables, and they won't. Well, I'm not saying all of them, but they view a white they view like a white kid higher than a brown person, and like this is all real shit. And they will kill the brown kids, but they won't. They will only harm. They won't kill the white kids, and I think that this has to do with more so. The whole thing again back to birth records and stuff like that. You know, they'll use a white kid, but they won't dispose of them. But that's all like real information you can look up and look into these cold activities over the years, where essentially they sacrifice brown kids, and they will only harm white kids in cold activity.
Yeah, well, you could also look at it very, very simple, and that is if most of their buyers are like from Western countries or like rich white guys or whatever, that they want the white kids to abuse, and so they don't kill them, they just sell them again, right, for more abuse. Isn't that it? Isn't that a part of it?
Well, okay, so the as you said, most of their buyers are more than likely white Europeans or white Americans, right? And essentially, some of these people are so sick that they actually want to rape and then kill a kid. I don't know why anybody would want to do that, but it does go on, and a lot of it has to do with the snuff film industry. And the snuff film industry is very big. It's a multi-million, if not billion-dollar industry. They charge. Last time I looked, it was like $10,000 a pop for one of these snuff films. On the darknet. But some of them go up to being as high as like $100,000 for a film. Now, who the fuck is buying that? It's not the poor people. You know, like, it's not the poor people buying stuff like that. It's rich people going online and buying stuff like that. They see it as a form of entertainment. I'm not saying every fucking rich person, right? But the people who are buying these things, they're rich. They're
Or they have power to offer. I mean, politicians too, right? They don't. Okay, so they are rich, but they aren't like the super rich. I mean, a big politician makes like $500,000 a year, which is a lot. But they're not like the billionaire elite, but they have power to offer too.
Well, John DeCamp said that he had a list of people who watch these snuff films. But you can look up his interviews and everything, and he says that he has a list of people who watch these snuff films, and they are shocking names that would kind of like cause people to be in disbelief and everything if he was to release them. And he never did release them. Even when he died, he didn't release them. But, you know, he said that he had a list of names that were watching these snuff films, and he got the list of names from people like Paul Benassi and all of them. involved in the Franklin cover-up with all the victims and everything that he interviewed. He interviewed a ton of victims, and only a few of them actually came forward and during the trial. The rest of them stayed anonymous, you know? So they were the brave ones that came forward, and because they came forward, they started having all sorts of shit happen to them. They had family members that were killed. One of the witnesses was killed. Eventually, Troy Boner. He was killed in a hospital. All of a sudden, he was in a hospital, and he had like blood leaking out of his mouth, and then all of a sudden, he was dead. So he's poisoned, essentially.
I have someone in my DM, doesn't want the name mentioned, but says they have their prize list, and the higher up they get and more power they have, the more sick their appetite becomes. Otherwise, children being sold on the darknet is extremely common, and it's cheaper now than we realize. So, yeah.
So they're saying that the higher up they are, their appetite's sicker. Is that's what they're saying?
Yeah, the higher up it gets worse.
Well, the higher up it gets in regards to the industry itself, yeah, I agree. With the whole exposure of Peter Scully, I think everybody should kind of be able to realize that. That's another case too that it's very obvious, right? The police, they arrested him. They had evidence in a warehouse. Guess what happened to that warehouse? It burned down.
Yeah. And that's what we also seen.
You gotta understand, going against these people is like going against a group of. Going against one of these people is like going against a group of these people. So they have all sorts of ways to essentially get back.
Yeah, I saw it with something random. Actually, it had nothing to do with any of this, but I saw like this YouTube video, and they were they do like this urban exploration, right? And these guys, they found like they were in a random empty warehouse. It was like below ground, and they found entirely brand new room, and they opened it. It was like entirely new. It was newly created, and it had like these huge chains, and it had like a bed, and it had like all these locks on the outside to keep someone in, right? And it was obviously like a prison hidden there for someone or for whatever. And then they publish about it with their urban exploration thing, and the entire building burns down like a few days later. This is on YouTube. This is like a super big video, like it has millions of hits.
Yeah, well, that room was used for child slavery.
Yeah, likely. Yeah,
videos.
Yeah, at least for stuff they
very likely, or it doesn't even have to be child slavery. It could be any type of slavery. Anytime you find a room with chains and a bed, I mean, come on, like.
Okay, should we mention?
But that's what they do with these.
Someone in the chat's talking
about.
What? Sorry, guys, who are listening. We have a little bit of a lag, so sometimes it happens. But in the chat, someone is talking about adrenochrome thing. Yeah, you know more about that, right? It's like that story makes it even sicker. It's like
but
like a dark web drug.
No, adrenochrome is essentially children's blood. But the thing is, like, the whole Q thing kind of made that like less believable, essentially, and it's like I have no idea if fucking rich elite people are drinking children's blood, but I can tell you that they're injecting it because it makes them younger, and the reason why it makes them younger is because you're injecting your body with young blood, and filling your body with young blood, it'll rejuvenate your body. It's obvious. It's I don't understand how anybody would not be able to understand that, but from what Q is saying, it kind of stems from things that Fiona Barrett was saying about how she was involved in a ritual, and cut open or cut off a head, and then like they drank the blood or something like that. But I have no idea in regards to if they are literally drinking blood from a dead body, essentially. Adrenochrome is essentially the chemical that it's a chemical that releases from your body from fear and excitement, and it releases essentially what they believe essentially is that they're scared and then killed essentially. But I don't know if that's like really what goes on. There are cults and there are ritual sacrifices. Now, is it as widespread as Q pushes saying that all of the elites are involved in this? No.
I've heard different stories about this actually, like about the adrenochrome thing too. Is that they scare their victims with these rituals, so they get super scared, and children get more scared easily. And then when this so-called adrenochrome is drunk, they drink this or they inject this, then they feel the actual fear, and it gives them a drug rush. That's what I read. And then you have that thing about what you say, that it rejuvenates them if they inject the blood. That makes sense, because like even like doctors know that stem cells in young people, it goes faster and faster. It heals them from certain things. Yeah, that makes sense. And then, but that, I think it also connects to these events like the whole spirit cooking thing, right? And these are certain people who do that. It seems like some kind of like weird eating ritual, and
right.
Seems to be also a lot of rich people there at these events. How serious?
Well, the spirit cooking thing, that's, I don't know if that's connected to adrenochrome, but what it is connected to, and I can tell you, is that it's connected to ritual, basically a ritual process being carried out. Because, and again, the spirit cooking formula is breast milk, urine, and blood. What a combination! Oh, and I think also, I believe semen. I think semen's in there too. Yeah, it is.
Sounds like some disgusting Crowley shit. Seriously, to be honest.
Yeah, it does sound like Crowley, doesn't it? And does it? The thing is, I never even looked it up to even look into it. If it actually came from Crowley and it didn't come from Marina Abramovich.
Yeah, no, like Crowley. Okay, but I mentioned Crowley because Crowley, that goes into the whole occult thing, and then with the drinking blood, it has origins in a very old pagan traditions.
Right.
Well, how do I have to call it pagan? No, I mean in Stonehenge, for example, there are druidic gatherings still, and they actually have like a cup of blood, and they put it inside one of these stones, and then on a certain day it turns blue, and then they use it for the ritual. They drink it and whatever. So that's what they do there. That's just a very old ritual.
In higher lodges in Freemasonry, they actually cut open a goat and drink the blood out of a goat. That's a higher lodge. I'm talking like Blue Lodge and P2 Lodge, not the normal local lodges of Freemasonry. The local lodges of Freemasonry are more so religious than a cultic like that.
Oh, you call those you call like the Blue Lodges, level 1, 2, and 3. They are public too. They're open. They have open, and they pretty much they do donations and things. And yeah.
No, Blue Lodges are private. They're not public.
Okay, well the lodges, those are like the one. They have 3 levels, right? They have like the Master Mason, like the level 3, is like the highest level, and they are like open. Everyone can go there, and they do Christian donation
No,
stuff.
there's higher. There's higher. That's a misconception. There's higher degrees than Master Mason.
I know that. But then you come in the Scottish Rite of 33 levels, or Memphis Misraim, 99 levels, Egyptian Freemasonry. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But Scottish Rite, like they don't. I don't think they recruit in public buildings, but I'm not sure. I don't know about that.
Most of Freemasonry is invite only. That's it. And you have to either have known somebody in your family or a friend to get into Masonry. And when you get into Masonry, you have to get in at a young age because they teach you a whole bunch of different principles and basically a new religion, essentially. Like I was partially involved in it for about like maybe under 6 months, and then I quit going because it was too religious for me. I went through the rebirth ceremony. They put you in a coffin and put a lamb's cloth over your eyes.
The kind of stuff you have to do, or
yeah, they put you in a coffin, not close the coffin, obviously. They put you in a coffin. They say some things about I don't know, like they say some things about masonry, and they have a cloth over your eyes, and essentially you go through a rebirthing ceremony. That's what it's called, and then they pronounce you to be rebirthed, and then they hand you your gavel and your compass, and they say to use these to balance your life. And
what happened when you left these douches behind? Like, didn't they like threaten you or something? You can't talk about this kind of stuff. I mean, are you allowed to talk about this? Or?
No, they didn't threaten me. It's just a local lodge. It was like everybody thinks that like it's a local lodge. It's not a higher lodge up in Freemasonry. I was invited into it because one of my family members had died, and his friend had invited me into it. He was like probably in his like 80s. Anyway, he invited me into it because I went to the funeral and went through the funeral process that they did. I saw the Masonic funeral that they did. And he invited me into the craft, and I was an apprentice, and I never got past to being an apprentice. They didn't threaten me or anything. It was just like, I just said that, I liked the charity aspect, but the religious aspect was too much for me, and I didn't want to do it. But the thing is, once you turn that, you can't go back and say, oh yeah, I changed my mind.
Yeah, 2 years ago I was exposing a lot of stuff about Masons, especially about like the Crowley side, which are officially called Shriners. I think they're not part of official Masonry, but they're Shriners.
Right, that's something different, right?
Yeah, they have a Masonic structure, but they don't consider themselves part of the official accepted rite of Masonry. But so I was exposing a lot about that stuff, and I was approached by a lot of different Masons, and they were like telling me all these kind of stories about how their organization was infiltrated by evils and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they believe too that higher lodges are bad. It's not saying that local masonry is just normal. What the fuck was that? Holy shit.
Well, what to me, what I felt about it is that these structures, just like a Scientology, exist as a sort of blackmail system for higher ups.
Local lodges are just there for
PR,
community service. They're there for community service related works locally. That's it. There's nothing like there in regards to local lodges. I mean, can I say that? I guess because I was there for 6 months, so I know like well under 6 months, not directly 6 months. Probably more so like 4 or 5. But yeah, like it's just there for community service and helping out your local community. I mean, they did a lot of community service, and I like that aspect of it. But it's just the religious aspect of talking about like God and everything is like, that was too much for me. And they were like teaching like ancient like secrets about like Jesus and this and that, and it's like it's too much for me. It's not like I was never interested in that. I don't believe in that, so
No, no. That to me, like, I know that they talk about like the universal architect, and yeah,
right.
it's not really my thing. I've read a lot about it, but I know that there are different lodges that aren't assumed to be part of their main thing. But I see in the chat someone, Christine, she says, doesn't Disney have a secret club 33? And that is true. There are these buildings all in
Right.
Disney parks.
And Paul Benassi, I believe it was Paul Benassi, said that this Club 33 was actually a club for basically pedophiles, and that he had been there before and had been used before at Club 33. So I mean, you take that as however you want. Paul Benassi, I mean, he has a lot of crazy stories. For instance, if you listen to him, he says that how he was his mind was compartmentalized into different personalities. Now that might sound crazy, but that's exactly what they were researching with MK Ultra. They were researching being able to do that. So
Yeah. Okay, and with Disney, yeah, that goes into a whole different story again, right? About white, yeah, I want to say white supremacism. That word has been so abused so much now, and about not, racist ideologies, pro Nazi back then too with Walt Disney. He was the only one who invited. Okay, so Leni Riefenstahl was the head propaganda creator for Adolf Hitler. Went to the U.S. No movie maker wanted to meet with Leni Riefenstahl except Walt Disney, and he's been attacked for that over and over again. But he was the only one, and that Disney castle is actually super strikingly similar to an old Nazi castle that still stands. Search for that on Google if you want to know more about that. Use or DuckDuckGo. Use search engines and see that Disney castle is actually super similar to that. But yeah, that's his the thing. And then you go into like the Thule Society, right, and the Masonic societies of that the Nazis had, the Teutonic Knights, and all these societies. The Nazis worked with, and back then were well connected into the U.S. too. So this is like a very that's a whole bit of that's a huge story to actually talk about that whole thing. I don't really do too much for
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a whole nother story for another day, man. That's long, but yeah,
You have the weird things in the Disney parks. I mean, there were some attractions in the Disney park. You had like a hanging child on a roof in that. What was it? The magical ride or something had like a dead kid hanging on at the ceiling. Kid was obviously hanging in a way that he looked dead, and it was there for what was it for years. In the Disney Disney World. Yeah, there's weird stuff going on there. Definitely, this is like a lot of symbolism. Look at Peter Pan's story, for example, or the Aladdin story, which is officially originally a rape story from 1001 stories in the Arab history. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. Peter Pan is has some pedophile references in
Yep.
that sense. So, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that whole thing. That whole thing is, think about it. You
Yeah.
know,
Alice
kids
in Wonderland.
escaping.
Think about that too. Then Alice in Wonderland. We have was written by a pedophile.
Lewis Carroll, yeah.
Yeah, he's a well-known pedophile. He had a. It was openly a pedophile. He had a crush on that little girl was Alice and her little sister. He made like nude pictures of her and stuff. It's and
Yep.
he yeah.
And while we're on to that, you know, Playboy used to have a underage magazine. It was called My Sweet, I think it was. Is that what it was? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't know, but it was at some point it was more yeah, I want to say accepted. I never accepted it, but it was more accepted in society, it seems. But
Yeah, it was more accepted. There was no laws in regards to it, and Playboy used to have a partner or sister magazine, I should say, where they had underage girls posing nude in various very, very, very strange ways, and such as playing with like a toy car or something like that. You know, like really fucking bizarre. If it wasn't bizarre enough that they were taking pictures of underage girls, I mean, the poses that they had them doing, it was very strange. And Brooke Shields was actually one of the girls who was photographed by Playboy's sister magazine. I just don't remember what it's called off the top of my head. But again, I've written about this over the years. You know, like everything is out there. Like anything that I talk about, I've written about essentially, except for some of the 9/11 stuff. Like some of the 9/11 stuff, I haven't fully written about yet, at least.
yeah. Yeah, and I mean 9/11. You could talk about that forever, right? There's so much stuff we don't know yet. Especially because yeah, it gets mixed in with so many different things. There's also like 1,000 different theories, and we do have some pictures clear now. I mean, even mainstream guys like who is that guy called from Michael Moore? Even mainstream guys pointed to some things which are very interesting, like the entire Bin Laden family being moved out of the U.S. Shortly after the event. Those are the main, and that he's a mainstream documentary guy. I mean, I don't consider him like.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, would he bring that up again? I doubt it. He's changed a lot. He
Yeah.
changed a lot. You know, he was one of the people who was kind of bringing up 9/11 truth, and everybody knows 9/11. There's so many holes into it. It doesn't make sense. Nobody believes 9/11. The official story by the government saying that you know 9/11 just happened. We didn't have any foreknowledge of it. We had no idea. It's just ridiculous. The type of technology that they had for tracking people during that time period, it just doesn't make sense. So it was allowed to happen. And, you know, like, they still had, at that point in time, they still had air support security. It's not like airport security didn't exist back then. They didn't have the TSA, I don't think, right? But they did have airport security. That wasn't new.
Okay. Hey, I don't think you have much time left, right?
No, yeah, it's getting to the point here.
I do want to follow up on this subject like very soon. I mean, it's very interesting to me. And I have a lot of knowledge about this too. I want to share this because I think we need to have it on the record in an audio. It's much easier for some people to listen to audio than to read.
On what subject specifically?
About these networks like Epstein, about these lodges and these organizations.
Oh yeah, yeah. We should dedicate just a full episode to talking about that for sure because we've done episodes and kind of talked about it here and there with some information and the thing is like if you do a whole episode of it and actually discuss it, there's so many connections that can be made to this stuff. It's just so deep. The depth to all of this is just incredible.
Yeah, because you're talking about networks that exist like longer than than some governments, entire countries do. So there's a lot of history there. Yeah.
Well, I don't know about some countries or governments, but I do know that a lot of these networks are like generational, essentially. You know, Paul Benassi said that the Rocking X, what he called, I believe he said Rolling X, but it's known in investigative circles as Rocking X, and essentially it's a X symbol that's branded on somebody, and they know that the X symbol branded on somebody means that they're being trafficked. But anyway, Paul Benassi said that Rolling X is a generational organization where they kidnap boys, and then the boys who survive, the strongest boys who survive, then go out and kidnap more little boys. So the kidnappers are the pimps, right? They don't do any work. They have the victims go out and kidnap more victims. So it's a generational thing with some of these organizations. They all operate the same way. Because if you commit a crime, you can't tattle on yourself. Well, you can tattle on yourself, but you would also be involved. You would be implemented in the crime too. So you could say that, I know this trafficking organization, right? And then they'll be like, well, how do you know this trafficking organization? You know, like, oh, I was a part of it. Well, that just implements yourself in a crime. And that's what they do, is they implement the victims themselves in a crime, so they won't tell, and they won't squeal on what's going on.
Okay. Okay, the chat's very excited about all of this, but we'll see more about the Team Assange, We're All Assange thing. Okay, well, the fact that this is not discussed has to do also with our media being completely corrupted, right? I mean, I don't want to quickly switch to that, but kind of.
No. Let's go into that real quick, right? So, with what the fuck's his name? I can't remember his name now. The BBC guy. What was his name?
Oh,
Jimmy Savile.
Yeah.
Jimmy Savile. So with Jimmy Savile, right? You know, he was in like the youngest that he raped was like a 1-year-old or a 2-year-old, maybe even a 3-year-old. Right, but you know, they knew that he was doing that type of stuff and running casting couch stuff at the BBC, but they never reported him. They never did anything about it. And Jill Dando was killed by somebody, again, mafia guy, somebody that she called Mr. Big. We don't know who Mr. Big is, or was. We just know that he was responsible for her death.
Yeah, and Jimmy Savile was protected. He was best friend or good friends with Prince Charles.
Right.
And then you think about the Lewis Carroll story again. His paintings hang around in royal palaces, Lewis Carroll's stuff, and then you have Prince Andrew connected with Epstein. So how obvious do you want it?
And what was the other prince? It was it's the current. What is his name? It was connected to Jimmy Savile.
Yeah, there's Prince Charles. Yeah.
Prince Charles. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they're deeply connected with royal families, and okay, I can see why royal families would be main targets of blackmail organizations. They are the most powerful in the West. I mean, they can operate in such ways no one, not even politicians can, because they are monarchs who have lasting power. But yeah, that is giving them the benefit of the doubt, because who doesn't say that they're doing it willingly and they love it? I mean, it's been going on for hundreds of years. I mean, Lewis Carroll is from 1832.
Right. Didn't Jimmy Savile's, was it nephew or? Yeah, I think it was his nephew that came out and said that he was involved in he passed him around or something like that. That Jimmy Savile was passing his nephew around, I believe. Not 100% sure on that, but I remember something came out with Jimmy Savile's nephew saying something about Jimmy Savile. I just don't fully remember it.
Okay, but that is a typical cult behavior thing that is like an ultimate gift of loyalty to like even use your own family members and things. And that has, yeah, okay. So and that has to do with like complete loyalty to the organization, and then you go into like those things like Skulls and Bones, where they, declare their ultimate loyalty. Yeah, and they're prepared to even give up their family members, and to give a gift like that to the organization gives you a lot of power in such an organization. And it's typical because organizations like Scientology do that too. They distance you from your family, or you have to bring them in. And you have to bring them in the organization, or you're forced to distance from them.
I just found out that there was one nephew with Jimmy Savile who says that he almost fell prey to the network, right? And then there was another nephew of Jimmy Savile who actually died of a heart attack. They said or heartbreak. They said following abuse allegations against his uncle. Well, that's really interesting, to be honest. I did not even know that there was a nephew that died following the allegations that came out. I only knew about the nephew that had said that he was devastated and that he almost fell prey to the network, and that Jimmy Savile had stepped up. It was Guy Marsden.
Okay.
Guy Marsden says that he was saved because abusers were part of the same ring as Savile, and that Savile had saved him from the ring.
Okay, well, that's a new story.
Also, Jimmy Savile's nephew had claimed that Sir Edward Heath had abused his friend. And we know Sir Edward Heath was a pedophile. You know, that gets into the whole blackmail thing, and we can leave that for next time. Just remind me about Sir Edward Heath, and I can get into why Sir Edward Heath was actually blackmailed, because its history at the time was actually surrounding creating a European currency, believe it or not.
Okay.
Because Heath was the one who signed documents regarding a currency. I don't know if it was the euro. It was. It might have been the. I think it was the euro. Not 100% sure on that. I do know it has to do with the currency, though. That might have been the sterling. or something. But I think it was the euro because I think it was uniting the British with the Europeans or something like that.
Okay. Okay, I guess. Okay, well, you need to really hurry up. I think. If I'm correct.
Yeah, so you can just close it up.
Yeah, I should mention again that we have a Twitter storm for Assange. I mean, okay, so I can quickly talk about this. Like, okay, so the reason no one actually knows about it because the press is so being corrupted and bought up by these people in power. Right, but the independent press is being attacked. Is being independent journalists who actually do leak stuff, who actually do show the world what's going on. They're being like arrested and as criminals. Okay. So yeah, and we're defending independent journalist Julian Assange, and for that we have a tweet storm tomorrow night at 8 o'clock UK time. So at 8 o'clock evening UK time we have a tweet storm, and everyone can just join in, and we will try to make a trending topic, get attention for this, because yeah, really that's an example of real journalism, unbiased journalism, where everyone can submit to a platform and gets published, and sources well protected, and whistleblowers having a platform to release stuff that would never be known by others otherwise. And WikiLeaks has always been crucial in this, and now Assange is on the threat, and he is the example of a journalist we need to protect, and that's why we have this tweet storm. And next to that, there are, I should mention, for Candles for Assange, they have street events on December the 18th and December the 19th in different cities. It's already over 30 events already in 23 cities in 8 countries, and you have to search for Candles for Assange on Twitter, and that's the number 4. There's Candles for Assange, and then you find them, and they have a lot of street events, and you can just join them on the streets.
Yeah, that's a good account too.
Yeah, it always have. Yeah, always a lot of street events, and it's necessary now. So if people want to go to the streets and speak out for free press and a journalist who is innocent and in jail, join up there. This Candles for Assange.
Yeah. And that just kind of speaks to the volume of how some of us get accused of not promoting some of these Assange supporters. And that's not true. I mean, the legitimate people who are actually working right for Assange in a non-selfish way, they do get promoted all the time, and we're united for one reason, and that's just freeing Julian Assange. That's it.
Yeah, I know. And Alex was in the chat. She does a lot of stuff. I know her, and she is always working hard for Assange. And there's nothing bad to say about her. I mean,
yeah, there's a lot of people who put in a lot of work for various different events for Assange, and doing like different shows and stuff like that for like awareness, and holding vigils and stuff like that. And they don't get a lot of credit for what they're doing. And, a lot of people do put in immense amounts of work supporting Julian Assange and pushing these awareness campaigns.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, because I just looked it up, and I don't like being wrong and not correcting myself when I know I'm wrong. The PM, Sir Edward Heath, it had nothing to do with currency. He just brought Britain into Europe. So he signed the paperwork for bringing the UK into Europe, which is interesting because now we had Brexit and the UK left Europe. So, at the time, Heath was blackmailed for signing the UK into the European Union. So that's what it was.
Okay. Okay, well, that's on the record then. Not sure. I don't see like the chat giving any updates, but they're still running. But like, there's no new message in the chat. I think the chat is also like censored or something.
Yeah, we probably just got banned from YouTube because I said like every trigger word possible.
Yeah.
It's funny. One of my friends. Yeah, we probably just got banned during the show that I haven't talked to in a while. He runs 3Speak, and he's one of the big guys behind Hive.blog. So for censorship, go to 3Speak and start streaming there. They're like blackballed exactly like BitChute is, and Gab AI. Gab AI is getting heavily censored, and BitChute too. I mean, they had all of their servers were like shut down, so they built their own infrastructure. And with BitChute, I mean, I don't know how they're still going because they were struggling when I talked to them before. They had no capital, that they weren't funded by like anybody. It's all out of pocket, all out of donations and everything. So. But they get a lot of attention. They get like people like Joe Rogan and people like that who speak about BitChute and say that it's an alternative to YouTube, which is good for them because they do a lot of good work, and they are staying true to their word and not just banning content. They are allowing free speech no matter what the fuck you say. So we can always host like archives on BitChute or 3Speak or wherever. I mean, it doesn't matter to me. But YouTube is probably going to censor this, and we're probably going to get banned from YouTube for doing this episode.
Yeah. Okay, so I already uploaded a few episodes to our BitChute. We have a BitChute. There's like 3 episodes on it, as long as we're not banned yet. But we have all the episodes backed up, so they can try.
Well, you can also back them up in Library too. There's a plugin directly into Library, where you just sign into your YouTube account, and everything you upload on YouTube will just automatically be uploaded on Library.
Yeah, well, that's a good idea. Yeah, and otherwise, we can always put it on our own site. I mean, we aren't really working on our own site, but that's always an alternative. Yeah. I mean, all the traffic and viewers, they come from social media, so that's it now. But if they try to censor us, we can always do that. I mean, it's not a big problem. Especially audio only, right? Yeah,
well, I mean, we're going to make a big push soon against this censorship. So, in regards to Somi and everything, I actually just was sitting in a meeting. There's some pretty big people that are going to be pushing this, and it's good because these people they're not only in it just for making money. I mean, they're going to make a shit ton of money doing it, but they're in it because of they realize the censorship and the data retention that these big corporate companies are doing to us. They're stealing all our data and then reselling it to whoever, and it's not right, man. Like, it's not right. All of the data they have on us, they can form profiles around us. And they should be able to do that. Like, you should be able to choose what you want to share, or if you don't want to share anything with the advertiser, you shouldn't have to. It's that simple. And, we're going to make a push back against this. And a lot of us, like, working on this, we're true to our word about the reasons why we're doing this. It's not to make money, even though we're going to make a shit ton of money, obviously, but it's more so for us to have a freedom I'm sorry, a free future when it comes to social media because they've been censoring everybody. And I have one friend who lost his Facebook page. He lost his media organization, and he was homeless for a while. Not going to name names and who it is or anything, but he's basically a digital nomad, um, jumping from house to house, and that's what these big companies did to this guy, and it's not right. It's absolutely not right for somebody to build their audience up, right, on your platform, and then you just decide, oh, I don't like this person anymore. I'm going to take away their audience, take away their revenue, and destroy their ability to live. It's horrible that people can do that, and that they think that that's okay. It's not. And I personally had that happen myself. Like, I'm not writing for like anybody that I was writing for before because of this censorship that's been going on with Facebook and other companies against our articles, and Google censoring articles, and all these big Silicon Valley companies working together with these fact checkers who absolutely know nothing. They wouldn't know how to fact check if I literally wrote them a descriptive, like, Google Dorks guide, okay? Like, they have no idea how to find information. And the thing is, like, I'm not saying everybody. Yes, there is fake news websites out there, but to blame fake news media just on alternative media is absolutely nuts. It's walking ourselves into an Orwellian society.
Yeah, definitely.
So we have to fight back, and we are going to fight back. And I've been just working personally with this company for 4 years, and we are getting ready to unleash and to be able to have a legitimate platform where we can fight back against this, because other people have tried. This has been tried time and time again. Gab tried, MeWe tried. All these companies tried, but they failed to get users, and that's the big problem, because they don't have the marketing connections to pull it off. And that's what you need to be able to get to that point. If you want to get users and you want to have millions and millions of users, you have to have the marketing team and connections with big name celebrities and influencers to be able to pull something like that off. So that's the goal. The goal is to push these big technology companies to adopting what we're doing. And it should be a pretty easy road once all this marketing starts kicking off. So that's what we want to do. We want to force these big companies to adopt, basically, stop selling user data, implement a way for users to choose what data they share and what they don't, allow them to monetize it if they choose, and stop the censorship, because the censorship is the biggest problem. The censorship is the biggest problem for us as a society, when it comes to the ability to freely share information and to have democratic discussions together. And they don't realize what they're doing, but with the censorship, they're creating echo chambers, and they're very dangerous echo chambers, where people they don't have a chance to see another person's point of view or information, and they just blindly shut it out because they don't have the knowledge to decide for themselves. So that's all I got to say. Didn't mean to drone that on, but I just had to say something about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, for now, tomorrow we have the tweet storm, right? Well, we're still on Twitter, so yeah. 8 o'clock UK time. We are all Assange. Will be the tweet storm for Julian Assange, and I think we said everything for tonight. Maybe we'll do another episode during the weekend or something, some special. I don't know. Will be announced. For now, yeah, I want to say thanks everyone for listening, and remember to please share it around. That's going to be the band on, right? You want to say something still, AK?
Oh, no.
Okay. Okay, well, maybe till later this weekend. Otherwise, Thursday, a regular episode if Tyler is available. He had to work tonight, but probably will be there next week. So you'll hear from us then. So